Gramagut Les Cancorla, and I welcome the opportunity, Minister, in talking on this bill. Minister, over the last number of months, and this is the first thing I'm going to talk about, I've heard you talking about the number of houses that's going to be retrofitted over the next decade, and what we can do, especially for older people. And this week, and today is only Thursday, Roscommon County Council, I've seen 2 letters where elderly people in housing aids for older people, where you can get windows put in, where you can get doors changed, or you can get a roof done, or you can get help at basically making your house more efficient. They have sent out letters to people telling them, and this is May, the beginning of May. Generally, I thought the budgets came out in March, and they have stated that there's no funding left. Now, this is coming when we hear day in, day out from you talking about retrofitting and doing up houses. And Minister, I've sat beside you in the previous Dáil, and we had many a good chat, but I'm surprised with this climate bill at how undemocratic it is, because you have your 5-year carbon budgets, but regardless of how it goes, a minister basically can overrule it. And that shouldn't be the way in any bill. The power should be left with this Parliament, and it's not going to be left with the Dáil here. And the one other thing, Minister, that I am surprised, generally, and I've seen it with people appointed to boards, and I'm talking about the Climate Advisory Council. There is a person sitting on the Climate Advisory Council who has come out publicly, not once, but a few times, and stated that half the national herd should be basically got rid of. Now, I don't think that's a prudent thing to do. I think that people that have made rash statements like that are appointed to be sitting on the Climate Advisory Council should be looking or thinking about where they stand in this, because you have to go in with an open mind. You cannot be saying this, that and the other, be it in media or on radio. And I think that you should look at this, Minister, because you appointed the chairs, and it is a worrying development that before we start off, especially for the agricultural sector, that basically you have people totally opposed to the type of farming that's carried out in the agricultural sector. And I think that's the first thing that should be looked at. In talking about the climate bill, and let's go down the road of electricity first of all. And we hear nothing at the moment, only wind turbines. We hear that there'll be 1 million electric cars on the road, and that there'll be 500,000 houses that will basically be reliant on electricity to heat them. And I watched RTE propaganda there a week ago or 10 days ago, where they were down at Money Point. And they talked about basically hydrogen going to start in Money Point, and the wind turbines were going to be nearly going out onto the sea straight away. But I think we need to be honest with people that from its infancy, a project that will be going in the line of wind turbines out on sea, from its infancy, can take between 10 to 14 years. It has to go through plannings. And when you talk about Money Point and that area, anybody that would know it would know that there's a dolphin sanctuary, and it's an area that would be pretty tough at getting plannings. And to the impression that was given, and this is the spin that's going on, is nearly that we were ready to turn Money Point on to hydrogen, and that those turbines were going to be out there and there was going to be heaps of jobs. Absolute BS. That's what that is. Because that's not going to happen. And the people in that area, I saw business people actually were interviewed, and they nearly thought they were coming in the next couple of months. And that doesn't happen overnight. And I think that we need to be clear to people on that. Also, Minister, we are at a situation at the moment that we have shut down the likes of Shannon Bridge, and we have Lanesborough, but we have oil tankers going into data centres in this city where the ESB will not guarantee them power. Now that's some contradiction. There's oil is coming from other countries. It is being brought in here. I think it's something like 7 or 8 oil tankers a day. And we talk about this clean environment that we're going to do. Minister, I'm going to make a prediction here on the record of the Dáil, that going by everything and talking to people and the experts, that in 2027 we're in real danger of not having power, because we're jumping from one thing to the other. Bear in mind that the Corrib gas field is over in 2027. There's objections, or some are opposed to having a terminal down in the below Money Point or down on the Kerry-Clare border for putting in gas. And what I am saying is, we are starting to say, well, we won't have this, this or this, but the problem is we'll be like a car with 3 wheels. We won't be able to go anywhere. In relation, Minister, to transport, you know, we've seen reports and reports and reports on the likes of the Western Rail Corridor. Lascancurla City in Galway, they talk about light rail. But this is all hypothetical stuff at the moment. There's no money or funding being put together to make sure that some of these things are delivered. I'm hearing about the Western Rail Corridor since I was knee-high, and what was going to be done. Would it bring people from Tuam? Would it bring people from Claremorris? Could you join it into Knock? And we have a city here as well that a quick solution could have been found. It's probably one of the only cities in Europe that hasn't a rail line from its main airport, which is phenomenal. And we talk about the amount of electric cars we're going to buy or have on the road, but do we look at the income of people? Do we look at the cost of it, first of all, of the cars? Do we look at most people in the rural areas buy a second-hand car between 5 and 10 grand. You wouldn't get the battery, to be honest about it, in an electric car. We seem to be bringing forward, and in looking at this climate bill, we're going to be a country, and there were nearly like salespeople we're going to move into, because we'll tick a box that we are going to be classed as the clean, green economy. But that ain't going to work, because that won't create enough of jobs, in my opinion. The plan that we're happier at the moment, and that your government is happier at the moment, to see briquettes coming in from Germany, Estonia, and different countries, than to say to Bordnamona people, workers in Offaly, well, sure, we'll keep making the briquettes till 2030. They're at 15% moisture. They come under, all the different criterias. Ye as a government are happier at the moment to bring mill peat into Ireland to keep the mushroom industry going than to mill our own peat. And we seem to be happier to bring biomass from Brazil. And I would like the proof that it's not being part of what's coming in here, that it's not part of this rainforest. And from South Africa, rather than having it in our own country. But of course, the problem in our own country at the moment, Minister, and under your climate plan, is that we're going to plant 8,000 hectares of forestry a year, is that we're not hitting a quarter of it, have not hit a quarter of it since 2016, have a minister that has been told about it time and time again from your party, that keeps on about new ideas, has a department that's dysfunctional, and you're all in denial about it. And still we write up on the chart that we're going to have 8,000 hectares every year. And we get our dashboard out weekly on the Ag Committee and we look at it. And the reality of it is that if you're talking about planting 8,000 hectares, you have to give licenses for 10 or 12,000 because a certain amount will never plant it. And if you're waiting 3 years, you certainly will never plant it at all. In the line of agriculture, you talk about organic, and this will be the new thing to go forward. In 2016, we had 1,663 in organic. In 2017, we had 1,558. In 2018, we have 1,800. So that's 123 from a mower and less for a few years. And Minister, ye announced with great fanfare a few months ago about the new organic scheme and that there was 400 to 500 going to be brought into it. Well, today's figures give you your answer of what the farmers of this country think of it and the way ye have gone about it. Because the figures are there that only 317 have applied for it. 317 people out of the whole lot of the farmers around the country. Does that send a message to you that something is being done wrong? And you talk about the new REAP scheme, and I remember talking to you about carbon budgets and all of that. The new REAP scheme is €300, even though there's a heap of money. We're going to 80 to €100 per tonne of a carbon tax. And we were told that there was a lot of money going to the agricultural sector for a new environmental scheme. The new environmental scheme is 4,700 plus the 2,000 more if you're in designated or have a double designation, which is nearly like trying to climb to the moon. And the old last scheme was 300 more, it was 5,000. So it's backwards we have gone. There is a danger as well, Minister, and this is what I just cannot understand. At the moment, if you are applying under the new REAP scheme, it says you can only put in the land you had in one time. If someone wants to put in a bit of wetland or bogland or whatever, because it wasn't in before, well, now it's not going in again. The mentality of people that's drawn up some of these things, I wonder, did they ever stand in a farm? Do they understand agriculture? They have read it as an hour, but they don't understand it in reality. Minister, we are facing a situation at the moment that farmers in the west and northwest especially, under GAIAC 2, where there will be two different systems under a derogation. We call it an amendment in this country, but the EU, funnily enough, calls it a derogation, where they are put at risk of never being able to, or basically that their land wouldn't be classed as being eligible. And this is some of the, when you talk about climate, some of the best land in the world. And if they are put out of that, what's the future for that rural family? What's the future for the next generation? What's the future for the community in that area? And then when we look at, we see the usual suspects in the media talking about agriculture and the amount of emissions that is put up. We see them saying, you know, Ireland has gone up or whatever. Have we put in our hedgerows? No. I think in fairness to you, you're trying to do that now. Have we done proper research on grass being eaten, grown? Have we done research on barley, wheat, and all the different other crops? Or what is the plan or the vision for rural Ireland? Minister, it will not be tolerated, a cut to the national herd. I can tell you that straight up. There will be, COVID will go, and there will be a revolt from the people in rural Ireland. For the simple reason, farmers are trying to make a living. They are the custodians of the land. We come from a managed landscape, and they are the solution to a lot of this, but they're not going to be the solution and the price payers at the same time. And I'll give you the example with your new fancy carbon tax. A contractor tomorrow going out cutting silage with the outfit that they have, the self-propels and the big M's and the loader and the tractors that has to do the job, with the amount of money it has gone up, the price of diesel and the carbon tax, they will pay €450 more per day with that outfit. And where is it going to come from? The farmer will be hit once again. And we need to make sure we do this in a carrot way, not a stick, because people in rural areas are sick and tired. I've heard about rural transport. Well, I can tell you that a bus that was going into Clonfad from Bus Éireann for the last 30 years, they have a route cut, and you talk about more buses. So we can't talk out about two sides of our mouths. But let me be very clear, Minister, that while you might get the support of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael TDs in here because they want to stay in government for another while, they'll face the electorate yet. And by God, I can tell you one thing, in the rural areas, if they go telling farmers X, Y and Z of what they have to do with their land, the land that they own, there'll be a different story for the next election. Just for the sake of power won't work. People are sick and tired. When you look at, as being pointed out earlier, what the likes of China does, companies in it, what companies in America does. And these people in agriculture are guardians. They can look after the environment and have looked after the environment, and they won't be talked down to. And let me be clear once again. I've even heard it last night. We were at meetings last night, a lot of us TDs. They've made it very clear that the minute the COVID is over, you can hide for so long behind the COVID, but the minute the COVID is cleared, that we're at a different level, politicians in Dublin will get a horrid shock, because rural people are sick and tired of what's going on. And in relation, I heard it spoke about earlier on, domestic turf cutting. Domestic turf cutters before fought a battle and will fight it again. We stood in front and made it very clear, enough of turf for your own house, for your own fire. And in fairness to you, you have said domestic turf cutters. I heard you a few weeks ago, and it was an RT. In fairness to you, you have said that. But whether it's you or somebody else, let them not think that they're going to walk on top of the rural people. And we bring in these things to try and put them out of business. That higher price of diesel. The kids, one time ago, you got brought to school. Now the buses are cut going to school. The bus routes are being cut. And here we are talking in this fantasy of a place here in Dublin, talking about, well, we'll have more public transport and we'll have more of this and it'll be all great and rosy. Think of the people, the two people And you talking about the 500 or the amount of houses that's going to be retrofitted. Think of them. One of them is 69. One of them is 67 that got their letters this week that there's no money to help them with their house. Just think of that, and you talking about 500,000. And this is May, when the budgets are only came in at least 2 months, because generally it's March when they come. But just think of what councils are saying. And it's not their fault, because they're getting it from central government. Thank you.